We confuse keto with ketosis. We confused keto with the ketogenic diet, or what the ketogenic diet even is, and with low carb. And it's all in the space of, low carb. I love Dr. Fetke did the same thing in the introduction, where it said low carbohydrate, healthy fat. It's not high fat. The way we first said it's healthy fats, including those healthy fats. But we don't do, I don't think we do a great job distinguishing the different levels. So can you explain a little bit more about the difference between low carb versus ketogenic versus even something like a carnivore or no carb diet?
Yeah, so I guess we'll start with sort of standard, say, American guidelines or New Zealand Ministry of Health guidelines, where your carbohydrate requirements are between 45 and 65% of your total energy. And that typically can work out to be 250 grams plus. And that's what's kind of recommended. We'll go to the one extreme of the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet is where you take your carbohydrates to below sort of 20 or 30 grams of net carbs per day. That is very, very low. And typically, if you want to, if you're doing very, very strict keto, say for epilepsy, your fat percentage is going to be up at like 80%. And that what that will do is put you in a state of nutritional ketosis. So it will mean that not only is your body using fat as a fuel, but also your brain is now switching from a glucose fuel source to a ketone fuel source. And of course, when ketones are used by the brain, there is you do get cognitive benefit from that, and that is one of the reasons why the ketogenic diet therapeutically is so good for conditions where fuel utilization in the brain is kind of, there's a question mark around it, right? So something's happening with glucose fuel utilization, and actually by switching to fat or ketone utilization, there's an improvement. Nowadays, even for epilepsy, you can do a more modified, they call it a modified Atkins, where you keep the carbs as low, but the fat doesn't necessarily have to be as high, but you still achieve nutritional ketosis. So you've got the one extreme and the other extreme, and then in the middle, in the gray middle, there's that kind of moderately low and low carb space. Typically, everyone's got their own kind of definition. The one sort of definition that's come from the literature from Richard Feynman is under 130 grams of carbohydrate per day. That is considered a low carb diet. Some people say, again, in the literature, when you look at the studies, anything under 45% of total energy is considered low carb, but that could still be, like
that could still be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't work with percentages typically with my clients. I sit in that space. It depending on what their goal is. I might say if someone is type 2 diabetic, and they've got a family, and they've got lots of stuff going on in their life, and they're not one of these people who just wants to go keto, I would say, try and sit between the 50 and 75 or 50 and 80 grams per day. It's still really low, and you might sort of go in and out of a mild level of ketosis, but that's absolutely fine. And as long as the person is achieving their goal in terms of improving their blood sugar control and losing weight if they need to lose some weight, then why do they have to go as extreme as keto? I don't know. I find that I get a lot of clients come and see me, and they go, I've been on the keto diet before and it really worked for me. And then I'd say, well, then what are you doing talking to me here? What's it, and they go, oh, it's just a bit extreme. And I did it really well. It was really awesome for like a month or two. And then I fell off. They just don't know how to moderate. So that low carb space, I think, is really good. I mean, with any approach that you go on, you've got to watch the creep. You've really got to watch the creep. You've got to watch the creep in everything, even people who are strict. So having a check-in with themselves or people or others, health professionals, is really a good idea for people who can't necessarily, get it under control themselves. And then you've got carnivore, which is interesting. So that's like close to no carbohydrate, depending on how you define it. And again, carnivore, some people just say it's meat and meat products. Other people say, well, actually it's dairy as well. And then other people say, well, once you've sort of done what you need to do, you can sort of bring a little bit of vegetables here and there. It's like, well, that's not the carnivore diet. That's like the modified carnivore diet. So I think everything's kind of creeping. And I really think that people need to find what works for them, whether it's, different proportions of meat and vegetables. I don't know. All I know is that a whole food approach, choosing foods that are minimally processed, is the most important thing. Protein is incredibly important, and particularly for, over the age of 40, protein becomes more important for athletes, for adolescents. Protein is really important. And carbohydrate is about, keeping it in a spectrum where you need to put it, depending on your goal, and looking at the best quality carbohydrate. And I think if you've got that covered and you really pay attention to nutrient density, then that's the battle won.
I mean, I've heard you talk about this in the past where it's like if you're going for those whole foods, you are probably going to be in that low carbohydrate space anyway. You'd have to like really try hard, almost like eating tons of fruit, which even then would be tough because there's so much fiber and things filling you up, that it would be really challenging to be above about 150 grams a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is that whole, if you just eat whole food, well, like, what is the definition of whole food? Well, that's another kind of open up a can of worms. It's, is yogurt whole food? Because it is still minimally processed. Well, I mean, I consider it whole food, but then other people wouldn't. You can't really go out into a forest and catch a yogurt, So there is an element of totally, unprocessed and then minimally processed that gets included in the brief. Everyone makes up their own rules, but whole grain bread is not whole food, because it's made in a factory. And I think when you go from making stuff in your kitchen to making stuff in a factory, the food quality and the level of processing is different. Then becomes a different thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So for me personally, I prefer to stay more on the strict side, although it's interesting. I consider myself being on the carnivore diet for the last 3.5 years or so. But when you're saying the level of carbohydrate to be in deep ketosis, 20 to 30 grams, I'm probably exceeding that. I mean, I use condiments from time to time. I drink coffee. Sometimes I'll have a beer. Like those things like that isn't necessarily carnivore. And that's probably more than 30 grams of carbohydrate for sure. But
Yep.
I love the approach that you take where it's like you don't need to be this strict. You can get really good results, include some carbohydrates in the diet, and just adjust accordingly based on your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just getting back to your point there, I do think people who are well adapted, and fat adaptation is this thing that happens over time. We don't know the exact day that it takes place, but we know that some people who are metabolically well regulated, who've been in ketosis, adapted, have had those mitochondrial adaptations for a very long time, can actually get away with staying in ketosis on a higher level of carbohydrate at times. So it's not a one size fits all. As long as you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, you're enjoying doing it, it's working for you, you're achieving your goals, and you are getting your nutrients, you're not doing anything that's harmful, well then, who cares if it's a carnivore or a vegan or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great point. And I know we've already kind of talked about this, but I would love to just reiterate when you're sitting down in front of somebody, there's going to be certain people that you can say you're going to be in the kind of 130, 150 grams of carbohydrate per day will probably be okay for you, versus another group of people where it's like, yeah, you should probably be 50, 60, 70. Again, can you kind of reiterate which people do you think can do okay with more carbohydrate and other people that it's like, you know what, you probably can't?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point, and it's a very, very gray area. And I do it based on kind of, I don't know, I take a good history from people. And before they come into my office, I do a good pre-screen form. I find out what their living situation is like, who cooks, how many kids they've got, if they've got kids, what sort of exercise they do, what sort of work they do, what sort of life they have, what they eat, how often they have takeaways, how often they have coffee, and I find out a lot about them, and then look at their medical history and look at what their goals are. And before before I see them, my business is online now. Before I see them, I've got a lot of information already about them, and then a further sort of 20-minute conversation gets me to that place that I want to be at. I do want to say that I have some clients that I've only worked out over time need to be strict, need to be in that ketogenic space because they are truly addicted to sugar. Now, sugar addiction is a thing, right? The same as, you know, an alcoholic can't have a drink on a Tuesday night and a Saturday night. They just cannot drink. They need to abstain. And people who have a proper sugar addiction can't have one biscuit as a treat on a Friday night. So in extreme levels of sugar addiction, some people can't even have so-called good quality carbohydrates. They can't even have, you know, some sweet potato or something, because that will you know, send them down that sort of spiral into wanting more carbohydrate and eating more carbohydrate and causing harm. So it does depend a lot on personality, working out if you're dealing with a moderator, or you've got that kind of black and white personality. And sometimes, well, you can't get that typically on the first session. Sometimes you get that with a lot of going moderately low carb and just totally failing the whole time, and actually going, you know what, you actually need to be strict. And then they move to a more stricter ketogenic space and it works for them. They still have to be diligent. So that's the one thing. I think if you've got someone who's got you know, got a spouse and some kids and a big social life, hopefully, you know, most people have got lives, and let's say they are they have type 2 diabetes and they've got, say, 10, 15, 20 kilos to lose. And they go for holidays every now and again, like, you know, a lot of people do. I would put them in, and of course, talking about what they've done before and what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them, because that really leads to what this has worked for you, this hasn't worked for you before. That leads to what might work now. And I think for that, typical for that maybe middle-aged housewife with a family, or, you know, not necessarily housewife, but someone who's working or whatever, that 50 to 80, 50 to 75 might be a nice place. And I always say, look, on some days I get people to monitor their food intake on an app, so they can really get a good handle and take control and get empowered. And I say, well, if you sometimes go lower, if you're having a day where you do 20 grams, that's absolutely fine, but that's not the prescription. You don't have to do that every day. If you want to do a little bit of intermittent fasting, absolutely include that in. That will bring your overall carb down. So that could be a space that I work in with that type of client. I had a client the other day who's a CrossFitter, and interestingly, I worked with her. I worked with her several years ago, and she got into ketogenic space. She was just flying. She was amazing. And then I haven't had contact with her for a long time, and she made contact again. She said she just got back into CrossFit, and she went to see someone who she wanted to build muscle mass. She went to see someone who put her on a high carb diet, and she said she just feels terrible. She feels inflamed, she feels puffy, she feels heavy. So what we've done is we've gone back to the ketogenic space just to kind of reset. And then for her, because she's doing something like CrossFit, which really requires you to tap into that sort of glycolytic energy systems a little bit more, we wouldn't keep her in the ketogenic space. You'd bring her into a space where she's maybe going, some days she's on 30 or 40 grams of carbs, 50 grams of carbs. Other days she might be up to, say, 100 or even 120. So it's for highly active individuals, it's moving towards periodizing the carbohydrates to the session. So if you're doing a very, a heavy session, an important session, you might want to include a bit more carbohydrate for nutritional support around that session. And then other days where you're doing lighter sessions, you might not. And the disconcerting thing for a lot of people about that is that there's no textbook guideline about this. It's about sort of feeling your way, because they go, well, should I put the carbohydrate after my training or before my training? It's like, well, I don't know, let's see, put it after your training, see how you go, or put it before, let's see how you go. It's very much trial and error. And for some people that's disconcerting. I quite like the whole trial and error, because it takes away the one size fits all, and you're a problem solver and you're trying to find the best outcome. So again, just to come back to your question, someone who's trying to live a healthy lifestyle, got a family, trying to achieve some goals, got a busy life, you might put them in the 50 to 80, 50 to 100 maybe.
Yeah.
If you've got someone who's eating 500 grams of carbohydrate, then maybe getting them closer to 100 to 120 might be a good starting point. For someone who's a CrossFitter or someone who needs that glycolytic, you might sort of switch between keto and a slightly higher carb, depending on phases of training.
Yeah. Wow, that is really well explained. I absolutely love that. I think that makes, this diet, this way of eating very approachable for lots of different people. And I love that you acknowledge all of those other things, that is not just, grams or the weight of something or the calories of something. Like, you don't eat calories of something or grams of protein. You have food, you have meals, you have a family. Who's preparing your meals? Does little Johnny like what you make? Like, there's so many other things that go into it that need to be considered. And I'm so glad that you take all those into consideration. I think that's really helpful for the listener to realize that you can adjust this. It doesn't have to be the same whatever diet that somebody's putting up on Instagram. Just because they do it doesn't mean that low carbohydrate can't be accessible and can't work for you. And certain foods that might trigger some people might not trigger you, and you can be okay with that. And everybody is invited, and everybody can stand to benefit from whatever level. And you're right, like the guess and check thing, I think, is wonderful. It's frustrating in the world of nutrition to feel like we never have the thing, and we're always adjusting. But you're right, it does make it fun. It does make it an interesting case in problem solving. So I really love that approach.
Yeah, and there's also a wide variety of places where people can access information. Literally, some people can read a book, apply it, and that'll be them forever. Other people need to gather a whole lot more information. Other people need to have their, support teams around them. Other people need to go to a registered dietitian or nutritionist. Some people might go, well, I've got a good rapport with my personal trainer. I'm going to work with him or her. I've got a client that she works with me, she works with a naturopath, she works with a psychologist. She's got a whole team around her to navigate through her issues. And it's really fabulous, that sort of multidisciplinary team. Every person has a different role to play. And as long as the client or the patient is at the center of everyone's thought patterns, then it can absolutely work.